Matthew, thanks for talking to us. Tell us a little bit more about how you make that link between energy prices and health.
So there's a clear link between people being cold and their susceptibility to illness. Indeed, the government's own vaccines minister just a few days ago recognised that when people are cold, they are more susceptible to flu, other viruses, respiratory illnesses as well. And so research suggests that even in an ordinary year, around 10,000 people additionally die as a consequence of cold. Now, that challenge could be massively worse this winter because of this unprecedented potential rise in energy bills. And it's our responsibility as health leaders to point out that for a health system which is already finding it incredibly difficult to deal with the demand that we face, we are working flat out in the health service, but we face unprecedented demand. Going into a winter that looks like it's going to be very tough, if we add into that more people who are unable to heat their homes, we'll also see more people getting sick and we'll see more demand. And that is going to be a problem for the health service, for all of us who use the health service.
Yes, and I want to hear what you're calling for in a moment, but tell me a little bit more about some of the risks. You mentioned respiratory illnesses. Are there other risks as well that are health related? I mean, what about mental health as well? Does that have an impact on people's mental health too?
Yes, absolutely. We know there is a correlation between poverty and ill health, and you're absolutely right, Anna, to say that that's physical health, but also mental health. And amongst the other challenges we face in the health service, we see major backlogs for access to mental health services. So greater poverty drives more demand for health services, more people being sick. But fuel poverty, people not being able to heat their homes, is a particularly kind of pernicious form of poverty, and particularly directly drives people's greater susceptibility to illness and their greater need to use the health service. So that we absolutely recognise the government faces some unenviable choices given the pressures on our economy and on public spending right now. But it is our job in the health service to be clear about the fact that the enormous challenges we have today in August in meeting demand are going to be tougher in the winter, and they're going to be even tougher if we have got thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions of people who feel unable to heat their homes.
So what can the government do? They would say they already have plans in action. They're talking about this £400 for every household towards their energy bills. They're promising more support for the more vulnerable people. Plus, the two leadership candidates have plans of their own. So what are you calling for?
So it isn't up to us to tell the government what to do about energy bills or tax policy or benefit policy. Those are choices for the Chancellor and for the government. But it is our responsibility to be clear about the consequences of the situation we're in. And we're speaking on behalf of NHS leaders. And those leaders are telling us that they are already seeing effects in their communities as a consequence of the cost of living crisis. They are already, many NHS leaders, having to deal with their own low-paid staff needing help because they can't make ends meet. And that's in hospitals, in community services, right across the health service. And that is in August. And so what our leaders have said to us is that we need to highlight the fact that if this situation deteriorates, as it could do, if the affordability gap when it comes to fuel bills increases over winter, then those challenges will be greater. And, you have quite rightly been reporting on your bulletins over the last few weeks, people waiting for ambulances queuing up outside accident emergency departments. This is fundamentally, Anna, because of a gap between the demand on the health service and the capacity that we've got. And whilst I will often come on your programme and talk about capacity issues, how do we get more staff, how do we invest more in capital, we also have to talk about the things that drive demand for health services. And more people being cold in the winter will drive more demand, and that will mean that demand capacity problem will become worse.
Well, yes, and the NHS, of course, has been under unprecedented pressure over the last couple of years because of the COVID crisis. Are you saying this could be as bad?
Well, COVID hit us in various ways over 2 years, and I mean, we all hope it wouldn't be as bad as being right in the middle of the first or the second wave. But, COVID is part of the challenge because, here we are in August with the challenges we've got around ambulance response times, waiting to see your GP, people waiting for operations. And even though we've managed to reduce the number of people waiting for a long time for operations, we know that we have these enormous challenges, even in the middle of August. So we just have to be kind of realistic about where we are right now, and realistic about the fact that it's going to take some time for the health service to develop the capacity it needs to respond to the challenges that we face.